dynamic as well. Well, look who it is.
Hey.
Our friend Paul Oren is here. Paul, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah. Take your time. The miracle of live podcasting.
That's good. Oh, I just moved the video. I got to find where. Here we are. Okay, good. We're there. Good.
Welcome, my friend.
What a day. What a day. Hey, rest in peace, Green Bay Packers, right here.
Yeah,
right above the Keon right there.
Yeah, I felt bad for you today. I know you're a diehard Packer fan. Look at that. Now I got your name on there. See how fancy I can be?
This is so good, Harry. You're doing the Lord's work today. Let me tell you.
There we go. So before we talk basketball, you're there in northern Indiana. How did you become a diehard Green Bay Packer fan?
Yeah, that's a good question, Harry. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally, and but I think the answer is deeper than that. I was a big Packer fan growing up. Obviously, it's kind of a birthright in Wisconsin, and then I moved to this is a great story. So I went to Valpo. I don't know if everyone knows. I went to Valpo, and when I went to Valpo, it's 140 miles away from Milwaukee, but it's in Indiana, and I remember thinking, Peyton Manning, this new quarterback they just got from the University from Tennessee, Reggie Miller, all of that, right? So I was really excited to kind of, adopt some new teams. I get to Valpo the first day of school or move-in day, and the guy, the RA, comes out and he's wearing a Bears jersey, and he says, "Hey, I want to help you move in." I said, "No. You're not. No Bears fan is going to help me. I don't need it." So what I did, Harry, is I've got all of my belongings right there in the back of my car waiting to move into my dorm. I rooted through my suitcase and I pulled out a Brett Favre jersey and I put it on, because if that guy was going to throw up a sign, I was going to throw up a sign. And I embraced being a Packer fan even more living here in Bear Country. I mean, it's Indiana. They should be Colts fans, but they all love the Bears around here. It's maddening to me. So
well, the Colts didn't start there. See,
you're right. You're right. Best story that I ever wrote. My favorite story, and I know you'll appreciate this, is when the Bears and Colts played each other in the Super Bowl. I went to Monon, Indiana, which is the exact midpoint between Chicago and Indianapolis. Using spherical trigonometry, it's the exact midpoint, and that is where I went to find out, are they Bears fans or Colts fans? And they're both.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Your face is frozen, but we're still seeing you. Oh, good. You're not frozen anymore.
Well, you were frozen for a bit. I just kept on talking because the show must go on. So
that's exactly right. Well, and so there are fans in both places, and that's the way it is in Illinois, in southern Illinois, mid Illinois, between the Cardinals and the Cubs. There's that same kind of thing that goes on as well. Paul, for people that are just joining us here on YouTube and on our website and on this program, tell us about you. Tell us about Northwest Indiana Times, your podcast. And, I know you very well, know a lot of your story, but I want the people that are watching for the first time tonight to know a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, again, as I said, I went to Valpo and I did a lot of theater and I did a lot of sports journalism. And I always just wanted to keep covering games. And if I got paid for it, great. It's just such a fun job that we do. And I have no athletic ability whatsoever, but I do like to tell stories, and I love history, and I've always loved kind of taking what's going on now and kind of looking at how it makes sense to where we were before in life. And I think if we know where we've been, we might know where we're going, and I think that helps a lot with basketball, right? And so I love telling stories, and sometimes they're fun stories about a run to the championship game in Arch Madness, or sometimes they're stories about 5-game losing streaks and COVID protocols. And so I think it's been hard to find some silver linings, and not just about the on-court wins and losses for teams this year, but every day feels like a trial, and sometimes I wonder, does this little bouncing basketball, this thing that we love here, does this mean a lot to us, or is it the escape? And if I can provide, the first responders and doctors and the lawyers and all those people, teachers, if I can provide them a little bit of fun with their morning coffee when they read the stories that we write, then I've done my job.
There you go. This week, CBS Sportsline, their website, and it was probably Matt Norlander, wrote a story saying, hey, we shouldn't have any conference tournaments. It's just going to multiply the problem. And as much as I hate that sentiment, I can understand that logic. Your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, hold on. You mentioned Matt Norlander. This is the Guster is for Lovers bumper sticker that Matt Norlander has on the back of his laptop. It's a band that both Norlander and I both love. And if you ever see him at the Final Four, you will see this bumper sticker gets a lot of primetime love on his laptop. So I do love Matt Norlander. I don't really agree with him. It's tough, Harry. I mean, I know that we're suckers for it. We love going to St. Louis to watch the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. And I think more so than anything, I can't wait to go back because, Harry, that was the last time life felt normal, I think.
No, that's right.
Was in St. Louis. Like, life hasn't felt normal since then. And like, I want to get back there because I somehow in my mind want to think that if we just get back to St. Louis, meet me in St. Louis, everything will magically be okay. And it's not. We still are a ways away, vaccinations and all that stuff. But it is tough. As much as I think a conference tournament could be great, I'd love to see what the powers that be could come up with that maybe would be safer. I don't know. I'm glad that I'm not the one that has to make these decisions. I'll put it to you that way, because I can't imagine having the weight of this stuff on my shoulders to be the one that has to come up with these protocols and these decisions.
Boy, no kidding. I mean, it's just been impossible, I think, and so Norlander, if it was him, I think it was him rather than Gary Parrish. But, he makes the case that on Selection Sunday, there's some teams that are supposed to play like on Tuesday, and the NCAA has already said that you got to test 7 days in a row to even participate in the tournament. And so some of it will be impossible, of course, by having conference tournaments if players are there and maybe getting infected. Anyway, it's going to still be difficult times. We're still waiting for 2 teams to come back from COVID protocols here in the Missouri Valley Conference. Theoretically, Drake will come back to play Tuesday, I think it is, at Missouri State. Evansville next weekend against your Crusaders. And I call them yours because you write about them.
Yeah. Harry, can I make a quick point, though, that I think needs to be made?
Sure.
It's when Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish and Dana O'Neill, when they say things like this, or Brooke Weisbrod, who works for ESPN, who calls some games, when they say things like this, they're getting criticized by a lot of people by saying they're fear mongering and things like that. I think people need to understand that, like, Matt Norlander's job is to write about college basketball. He doesn't want the season to be postponed. My job is to write about college basketball. I want every game to be played selfishly, but that's selfishly. I mean, if I get on Twitter and I say, you know what, maybe it's not smart to do this, that, or whatever, and I don't know if we're going to get into the Nick Robinson Valpo thing in a little bit, but I mean, I'm so conflicted with that whole thing because of who am I to tell you, yes, we should, or no, we shouldn't. And when Matt Norlander says that, he's getting a lot of grief from people, but keep in mind that Matt Norlander gets paid if college basketball is happening. Like, it's not good for Matt Norlander if college basketball doesn't happen. It's not good for me if the teams don't play, even though I might say, hey, maybe they shouldn't play.
Yeah. No, I hear all that. And I think we just have to be people that are thoughtful in how we think about it. When I post things all the time, COVID chaos. That's one of the hashtags I use all the time because it is just chaos. Missouri State's coach Dana Ford was telling us the other day, he said, well, we think we're playing Drake on Tuesday. We hope we're playing Drake on Tuesday, but every day. And they had 2 sets of guys that picked up the virus. They had about a third, maybe 40% of their team got it in the summer, and about 40% of their team got it September, October. And so that first group is now eligible to maybe be getting it again if that 90-day thing is. And so they're like, well, we hope we get to keep playing. We hope we don't get hit like everybody else. I was doing an interview with Brad Korn, the Southeast Missouri State coach, a week or 2 ago. and we did an interview on Tuesday or Wednesday, and they were playing Belmont on Thursday. And I said, well, how are you guys doing? And he said, good. He said, but we play on Thursday, we get tested on Friday. Every day is who knows. And they played Belmont on Thursday, got tested on Friday, and went on COVID shutdown. And so it's just every day things are just crazy for these teams and for these leagues. And so we have to be aware really that these kids there's a price that they're paying too.
Absolutely.
Before we get to Nick Robinson, and I do want to talk to you about him, we've had a number of players. We had Antoine Kimmons there at Northern Iowa opt out, because of COVID issues related to his family. The same thing, Keith Fisher at Illinois State kind of pulled out because of complications. Not that anybody had it. He's trying to protect his newborn son. The stories are endless of different players in different situations. And I don't know how, at a distance, or even if I know them well, why my opinion would matter about what they do.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I've, in the Nick Robinson story, it was a crazy story. And you asked about where people could find me and things like that. I have a podcast called Union Street Hoops. And tomorrow I'm going to record an episode called The Story Behind the Story, which I will maybe share a little bit about what, some of the details about how all that came about, and maybe some of my personal thoughts on it a little bit. And I'll say right now is, man, what a tough spot for both sides. Right. And I don't know, if a player obviously doesn't feel comfortable playing, I then don't play, and that's fine. I don't think any, and actually Matt Loddick said this. He doesn't think any less of anyone who wouldn't play. I'm sure Ben Jacobson not only doesn't think less of Antoine Kimmons, probably is supportive of him, and Keith Fisher at Illinois State. I mean, God, and here's the thing is that Matt Loddick said this the other day. Are we a better basketball team with Nick Robinson? Of course we are. Does this hurt our team? Of course it does. I think Dan Muller would tell you the same thing. But these guys have got to do what they've got to do for themselves, right? But at the same time, I would tell you that I think if you're a coach, your job is to win basketball games, and your job is to also develop young men and things like that. And but you got to go out there and you got to play. You got to roll the ball at the center of the court and say, okay, who are my five guys? And you got to have some consistency with that. And so I see both sides. I see a tough spot for a player who says, do I really want to take this risk if I don't have to? And then I also understand the coach saying, hey, look, if you want to sit out this game and play this game, like, we can't have that. I get it. I really do.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about Valpo's terrific weekend. I mean, they looked like a team that had just lost it all earlier in the week and then just dynamic this weekend against Illinois State.
Yeah, I mean, what you talk about an important weekend. I think after the Arch Madness run in St. Louis last year, this might be the second most important weekend that Valpo basketball's had since joining the Missouri Valley Conference. Harry, it was really hard. I don't know if hard's the right word because, again, like Valpo wins, Valpo loses. It's my job to write the story. But watching the team after the Loyola game and just watching their body language on the court, on the bench, it was a disaster for Valpo. I mean, I spent the last 6 minutes of that game researching the worst loss since when, the least amount of points since when, the biggest home loss since then. And I got to tell you, I went back not only before my lifetime, but before my father's lifetime in some of these categories, right? I mean, it was bad. And so then the question is, okay, you're going to go on the road, albeit to a team that has had as equally amount of struggles as Valpo's had. Illinois State is tough. Obviously losing Keith Fisher, they're just a young team. I like Dan Muller. I think he's got a lot of young talent on that team. I think DJ Horn is an excellent player. I love Howard Fleming. I think he's going to fill up the box score a lot. But this was maybe the right opponent at the right time for Valpo, right? To go on the road to a team that Valpo's had some success against. And the manner in which they did it, Saturday's win was Donovan Clay and Aaron Gordon. Donovan Clay playing maybe his best or second best game of the season, arguably looking like the all-conference player that everyone thought that he was going to be this year.
Well,
And
Paul, hold on. He got his haircut. It's the same. It's the same MO as last year. He was
you're right.
A little bit, cut the hair, bang, basketball.
You're right. Well, I got to cut mine. Maybe I'll perform better. I'll write better, I guess. But Aaron Gordon has been maybe the one consistent piece that Valpo's had their first couple games in conference. He's playing like a senior. And then on the flip side of that, Ben Krikke played his worst game of the year yesterday. So what does he do? He comes out and he puts 25 and 15 on Illinois State today. And Daniel Sackey, 16 assists and 4 turnovers in the weekend. I asked him afterward, what was it? What did this weekend mean? And he said it was huge, a huge 48 hours for the program, for the team. He said we needed this. And then he went on to say that against Loyola, they were embarrassed. It was a devastating game. And they were locked in practice. They were locked in from the jump. And he said our performance spoke for itself. And when their backs are against the wall, this team has somehow figured out ways. It's the MO of this team, right? Last year, they would routinely erase 15, 16, 17-point deficits. They did one at Illinois State. This year, they haven't really been able to do that. They played tough at Vanderbilt. They played tough. They were up 11 at the half against Purdue. They play better on the road than they do at home, and I think you're seeing that a lot in college basketball this year. The home court advantage isn't there. But, Harry, this was the best possible outcome for Valpo. Obviously, a sweep. I mean, that sounds silly saying a sweep's the best outcome. But the manner in which they did it, they got contributions from a bunch of different people. At the end of the game, they had their freshmen on the floor. Connor Barrett, Sheldon Edwards made a pair of huge offensive rebounds. There's a lot to build on from this. And now they get Bradley. And they get a Bradley team who will be spitting fire when they get to the arc, right? This is a team that has a coach who perpetually plays the disrespect card. If there's 52 cards in the deck, they're all disrespected. Right, like he's always. I like Brian. I've been a big Brian Wardle fan since he was a player at Marquette, but he beats this drum of no one talks about Bradley. No one talks about Bradley. The Bradley fans feel the same way. Oh, we've been to the NCAA tournament twice in a row, and no one talks about it. Okay, so now they've gotten their heads beat in 2 games in a row, and they're going to be angry. And I think they play tomorrow. I think they play Loyola tomorrow. So I imagine they're going to. I imagine they're going to be angry tomorrow. And they could be angrier when they come here on Thursday. And again, let me tell you, I got all the respect in the world for Bradley, but I think the narratives are always funny around some of these. I eat them up. I think they're great. They're great.
The drama of the theater is always. You said you took theater things there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Theater is so important. I want to talk about the last 2 days. Continue just for a minute there concerning Valpo. I was started the podcast, the postgame show before you jumped on, just trying to make sure I was actually on the air, and was talking a little bit about Daniel Sackey. I did a interview with him, made a podcast out of an interview with him about 2 weeks ago. So impressed with just who he is as a guy and the way he goes about what he does.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how much this will get me in trouble.
Oh, brother, here we go.
But Daniel would be the first to tell you he's been struggling on the court this year.
Yeah, he has been.
And I remember, and when I say this gets me in trouble, it might get me in trouble with you. We were doing the Missouri Valley Conference teleconference the other day, and I asked Matt a bunch of questions that their backs were against the wall. They weren't doing well. It was kind of a somberish, line of questioning or whatever. And then you, what I love about you is you're always so positive, right? And so the sky could be falling around and you would find the crack of the sun in the sky falling. And so you hop on and you said, Daniel Sackey is such a, and I was like, man, he's asking about Sackey, who is playing the worst basketball of his career right now. It's not good. And I'm like, and I know that Daniel and Matt have had conversations, and I know that Daniel is he's just you're not wrong. He's a great guy. But I know that he's been down on himself too. And then you come in and you're asking these questions, and I see Matt. I can kind of read it in his eyes a little bit. He's like, oh, I
How do I spin this?
I got to spin something good about Daniel here because we and again, Daniel will be the first person to tell you he's been struggling. So all that being said, so great to see him deliver these games. He took that Loyola loss, I think, harder than anybody else. And we talk about Nick, right, about opting out. Like Daniel was right there too. I mean, they've had long conversations with Daniel as well. I mean, and I think it's from what I know, and I don't know all of it, but I think Daniel was quarantined alone in a dorm room on Christmas Day. And I think a lot of if that happens, you got to ask yourself, what am I doing? You know what? Is maybe this just not the right year to do this? The on-court stuff's not going great. I'm stuck in a four-walled prison for Christmas Day because of protocols or whatever. And I got to tell you, to see the success that he's had over the last 48 hours, it's what this is all about, right? I mean, and your reporters aren't supposed to cheer for people and all that stuff, right? Fine. I'm a human being. Daniel's a human being, and I got a lot of respect for him, right? I think to play college basketball in another country, to leave your family, to come somewhere else, and to do it when he was on his recruiting visit, I think, I mean, the urban legend or the myth or whatever is that he came for a visit. He talked to a couple of guys on the team, and he said to Loddick, I love your team. You just need a leader. I can be that guy. And he is. And I've got all the respect in the world for that guy. I also think sometimes he's a little too fast on the court for his own good. But he played so well these last 2 days. And I've had conversations with Daniel over the summer, just he and I talking in relation to a lot of the stuff that was going on in the country. I loved your piece that you wrote about him because I think it speaks to the kind of guy that he is. And so, yeah, I fully endorsed your story on Daniel. I thought it was funny that you chose that week to do it when maybe he was struggling quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed, talking to him. We had a lot in common, so it was a lot of fun to do that as well. So a double-double is a cool thing, right? And it doesn't happen every game. And on Saturday, Valpo gets 2 of them. Today, they get another one. And you mentioned those individual guys, Cricky and Clay, and I guess it was Gordon was the other one. And I think Aaron Gordon looks like the guy they thought they were getting a couple of years ago. I think he looks like him this year.
Yeah, without question. I think Aaron, he's an interesting guy, right? He is he's not just about basketball. And I say that as a full-on compliment to him. Right. Because, and there's not that there's anything wrong with video games or any of that stuff. Right. But there's a lot of guys who are like, okay, they're going to go to the gym. They're going to get shots up. They're going to go home. They're going to play video games or whatever. Like Aaron is a guy that when he's not at the gym, he's doing, marketing stuff. He's doing video stuff. He's doing all these different things. Right. And so I've gotten to see a lot of that from him the last couple of years. I haven't got to see a lot of the basketball from him because he's been hobbled by a perpetual knee injury, and he's just been slow. And I got to tell you that I know that the results from these games before Illinois State weren't there, but Aaron has brought it every single day. And I want to also tell you a good story about Aaron Gordon that I don't know that a lot of people know. He hit the game winner against Loyola. He got all the credit, right? Post-game interviews, he's the ESPN or whoever was calling the game, everything like that. They're talking to him on the floor and all of that. And I ended up, he's finishing his post-game interview as I was walking back toward the press conference area. And Aaron was a step in front of me. And I walked by him as he went into the Valpo locker room. And I just heard him yell, Kaiser, that was your play. That was all you. Kaiser. And I saw out of the corner of my eye, they just did a big hug. And I thought, here's a guy, Aaron Gordon, who's getting all these kudos. And he should. He hit the shot, right? And the first thing he does when he gets in the locker room is make sure that he finds Kaiser and lets Kaiser know that was your play. You're the one who made that happen. And I just think that speaks. A lot of people point to discord around teams when they're losing and all of that. And that's just not the case with some of these guys that are on this Valpo team. They're very close with one another. And Aaron is a big part of that. And Matt Loddick said the other day, young guys look to senior leaders, and Aaron Gordon is a senior leader.
Sackey said the same thing to me several times in my conversation with him about team unity, team togetherness, those kinds of things on the Crusader team, and that speaks, obviously volumes about Matt Loddick and the guys that he recruits, but the way he builds the team. And
it hasn't always been like this under Matt Loddick too. I mean, they the first couple of years they brought in quick fixes, right? And I think that he did exactly what I would do if I was a first-time coach. I would look, oh, hey, look, we got high major transfers from here, and the JUCO guys or whatever, and it didn't mesh, right? It just didn't. Sometimes it works. Bryce Drew built a team that he took to the NCAA tournament on transfers. Guy from Virginia Tech, a guy from Ole Miss, a guy from IU. He brought them all together and sprinkled in a couple of homegrown talent, and it worked. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think Matt has gotten to the point now where he's trying to find guys that want to be here for the long term, and people that, sometimes transfers find a new home and they love it. Sometimes it doesn't work out, I think he's got a good mix. And the one thing that Matt has continuously said, and it's sometimes frustrating because it's like he says the same thing to me all the time, but I think he means it, is no matter how bad it might look on the floor, these guys are showing up to work the next day and practice and getting better. And Daniel said, look, we had great practices after the Loyola game to get ready for this. And it showed.
Good for them. And you love to see programs just continue to grow. And that's my problem, right? I've got 10 favorite teams. and I want them all to progress and get better. And it just doesn't work that way. I mean, they can progress and get better, but they're beating each other around.
Well, when I covered Valpo in the Horizon League, I used to always talk to their media relations guy, the Mike Kern of the Horizon League, which Mike Kern stands on his own island, but I always would say, hey, how come this team gets a little bit more love, or how come this or whatever? And he said, I have 10 children and I love them all equally. and I think some years some children get bigger presents at Christmas and other years they don't.
That's exactly right. Loyola has a double-digit win over Bradley today, and now the Braves have lost 2 bad games in a row. I mean, meaning it's not bad to lose to Loyola, but a double-digit loss. They're down 20, I think, at the half, or at least late in the first half, and they lose by double digits. I don't know if embarrassing loss, but a bad loss really to Illinois State on Wednesday or Thursday, whatever day of the week it was. When we look at the race right now, Drake hasn't played in forever, and I think they're going to really struggle Tuesday against Missouri State because of the layoff. But Drake's undefeated. Missouri State, Loyola, all off to great starts. Do you have any thought, any feeling, any sense of where this thing is going?
Well, it's interesting because, there's a part of me that feels like conference play has just started, because Valpo has now only played 5 games, and really, they played 2, and then they had time off, then they played 2, then they had more time off. And all of a sudden I'm looking at, like, these teams have played 8, 9, 10 games already, and it's but I mean, to me, I think it's a 3-team race. If you're giving me 3 teams and versus the field, I'm telling you that Drake, Loyola, and Missouri State are the class of the conference right now. And that's because other teams have, Bradley's been dealing with injuries, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Henry and Boya have been out, and that's, them at full strength is a different story, but they got to get to full strength. The same thing last year with Bradley, yes, they're a very good team, but they didn't have Elijah Childs for most of the conference season. That's why they were hampered a little bit. Mm-hmm. Northern Iowa's got a lot of great talent, but they're missing the best player in the league, and you take the best player off the team, it's gonna change. And obviously missing Kimmons as well. Drake, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back from the long layoff. But Missouri State, Isaiah Mosley, great Gage Prim. You need, in the postseason, you need great guard play and a good big man. And I think Missouri State's got it. And you need, obviously, people who can hit shots. And you got Jared Ritter who can bury shots. I mean, they're really good. Now, I've seen them up close and personal for 2 games. So but Loyola's making everyone look silly right now. Yeah, they're so good. And I think Loddick pointed out after the game when I said, 10 months ago, you beat that team. And what happened? And he I think he was very candid. He said, look, this has been an awful year for everybody with the starts and stops and all of that. And the most experienced teams are going to be the ones that are going to be able to. I mean, they've been playing basketball together forever. Krutwig and Williamson have got AARP cards at Loyola, right? They've been there forever. And I mean, they're like, they went to school with Sister Jean, and so they've just been around for forever. And I think that's going to help them, navigate some of this stuff. But Drake, I mean, those kids, you talk about forever. Those kids, the Northwest Indiana kids, have been playing basketball together since they were in diapers. So they have been those three teams. You got the talent of Missouri State, you've got the experience of Loyola, and you've got kind of the mixture of both of those things at Drake. And I think those three teams are the class of the league right now.
Paul, before we let you go, tell people again where they can find your writing. Wait, before we do that, give us a sneak peek on the Nick Robinson story. So he left the program last week, and he was, listen, I did a story on the best bench players in the league last week, and I'm writing it, and Nick's going to be in the story. And then all of a sudden I get this memo, oh, he's leaving the team. I'm like, well, okay.
Well, it's really funny too, because I think he was about to no longer be a bench player. I think you might have seen, and again, we go back to Daniel a little bit. I think there might have been a possibility of, hey, let's put Nick in the starting lineup and let's take Daniel out. And because Daniel last year, when he came off the bench, turned a season around. I mean, Valpo doesn't get to the title game without Daniel Sackey in Arch Madness last year, and part of that was he started coming off the bench and kind of recalibrated himself. So I think you were about to see a move like that. I think this is what here's a preview, I guess what you can say. And again, the podcast is Union Street Hoops, and you can find me on Twitter at NWI Oregon. There's no question that Matt Loddick has his detractors. I think any coach that comes to a program like Valpo, which is used to postseason success, and then obviously you go to the Valley, which it's going to make. I don't care if it's Homer Drew, Bryce Drew, Scott Drew, Larry Drew, whoever coaching, or Matt Loddick, or anybody. I think this is going to be a really hard transition to the Missouri Valley Conference. But there are a lot of people who are down on Matt. And when I say a lot of these people, there are people on Twitter who don't put their names behind things, or their message board people and stuff like that, right? And I think when a lot of detractors read Nick Robinson's letter or that or whatever, that was fuel to their fire. That was chum in the water for the Sharks. That they this is garbage. I don't like this guy. I don't like Matt. I think Matt has got a lot of supporters too. I think there are a lot of people who like the way that Matt goes about things. They like the way that he coaches. They like the kind of players he's bringing in now and the way he's building the program. And I think those people read that letter or hear Matt's statements and say, yeah, no, that's the right thing to do. You need to be all in, right? So I don't know that anyone's mind about Valpo changed with this story. I think it's like a Trump press conference. It fired up people on both sides, right? Or a Biden press conference for that matter. It fired up people on both sides, and people are going to take from it what they want from it. Here's the thing, this is the most important thing, and let's not lose sight of this. These are human beings, Their numbers on jerseys and all of that stuff. Their stats in a box score. These are human beings. And after the game today, I said to Daniel, you've had a lot of adversity in this program in the last 96 hours, from the loss to Loyola to the Knicks stuff to everything. And after he talked about saying it's been a huge week for us and all that, he made a point. He said, as for Nick, he might not be on the team, but he's still one of us. He's still with us. He's still part of what we do. He's always going to be our brother. And that, look, I don't care if you're on the court, off court, whatever. That's what matters. That's what matters. Lifelong connections, relationships, and all that stuff. Like, players come and go, but they don't come and go for each other. They're with each other all the time. And while the roster numbers may change in 2 years from now, none of these guys may be here or whatever. I thought, actually, to tie it all back, I was listening to Aaron Rodgers after the game today, and he was talking about how gutted. He said he felt gutted. And it wasn't so much what happened on the field. He started talking about, we don't know what's going to happen to Aaron Jones or a couple other guys. And then he said, or myself for that matter. And I think that's something to pay attention to, right? Like it's hard. It's hard. They're human beings. And I think we can't lose sight of that fact.
Absolutely right. Northwest Indiana Times, Paul Oren. You can get his work, and you should follow Paul Oren. He's a great follow on Twitter, and great stuff that you produce both in the paper and your podcast is really worth watching, listening to, and enjoying. This week, I get the opportunity to be on the Missouri Valley's radio program tomorrow night, the Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis. You can stream that wherever you folks happen to be. And next Sunday, I get to be on the ESPN call of the Valpo game at Evansville. And I know you've been doing some radio for him, Paul. That's got to be fun for you as well.
Well, that's how I got my start. That's, I said I did theater and then I did sports. I took my love of theater and performing and moved that over to sports at a young age. And then after I graduated college, before I got back into being a sports writer, I worked at a rock radio station in Milwaukee. I love radio. I love broadcasting. And normally they have students that call the games here at Valpo, and they've been all gone for break, right? And they're not coming and going like normal with COVID. So they said, "Hey, how'd you like to come out of retirement and dust off the old headset?" And I said, "Absolutely, let's do it. That would be a blast." And it was great. I actually did one of the games with Jamie Stangl, a women's basketball player from Valpo, back when I was a student, and she does a lot of the women's basketball games as well on ESPN3. And Jamie and I have known each other for 20 years, and it was such a blast, and really, really appreciated the opportunity to do that. So, I've got a face for print, but and a voice for I don't know, for writing as well. But that said, I enjoyed doing it. It was fun, and this was great too, Harry. I love doing this, and if Valpo ever sweeps back to back in a weekend again, I expect I'll be back on again soon.
Listen, we appreciate your time. We should let you go and let people get off YouTube and quit hanging out with us. So appreciate your time. We're trying to do this on certain types, typically Sunday nights. We're calling it the Valley Hoops. Oh, wait, I'll be really creative. Watch this. This is live podcasting at its probably worst. The Valley Hoops Insider Postgame. See how that magically appeared?
There you go.
We're going to do that Sunday nights and try to just catch people up on what happened that day and the things that are taking place during the weekend. Paul, appreciate your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Take care. Be good.
You good. You too. You've been watching the Valley Hoops Insider Postgame. Remember, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.